One of the best features in Wuthering waves that you don't normally get to experience in most popular gacha titles is the option to spend your Afterglow corals to secure a duplicate of a character that you already own, making it easier for free-to-play and low spenders to make the units that they already have much more stronger for many patches to come. And that's exactly why I made this video about 5 months ago to guide you on which best early sequence you should get for all characters in the game at that time. So this video will be a part 2 since 7 new limited units have been added to the game. As a disclaimer, I don't pull for sequences for all units on my main account to see how valuable the sequences can be, but to make sure that I can provide the best information for you guys, I did consult players that usually pull for sequences like Helium on my Discord, who made the all sequences simplified document that I normally share with you guys through my community post. Link to the document will be in the pinned comment below. Let's start with Galbrena. S1 will be her best early sequence. It provides up to 80% crit damage for her basic attacks in the Demon Hypostasis mode if she has 40 points of Afterflame, which she gets from casting Echo skills. There are 2 major issues with this sequence. The 80% crit damage does not buff her Resonance Liberation, so you need S3 to fix that, which can be quite expensive. The second issue is that S1 requires Qiuyuan or Cantarella for Echo skill cast before she can get all the 80% crit damage, so if you don't have those 2 hybrids or sub DPS buffers, getting S1 is not really recommended unless you plan to get them on the rerun. S2 can provide up to 90% attack, which is insane, but it requires you to maintain the burning drive state, which is this bar right here, and it synergizes really well with S1 since her basic attacks in the Demon Hypostasis mode are now immune to interruptions, so you can tank a few hits. But if you're very casual and you always like to spam basic attacks in the Demon Hypostasis mode, even if you're using Qiuyuan, S2 is not a sequence that I would recommend because basic attack stage 4 is the attack that refreshes the burning drive state, and it takes roughly 3 seconds for you to use it when using the basic attack spam version, while burning drive lasts for 4 seconds. So it's much easier to lose the 90% attack buff for a short amount of time after getting interrupted before basic attack stage 5, which is the attack animation that makes her immune to interruptions while spamming basic attacks. But if you can always add Hell Stride or the special dash to her basic attack combos, like the basic attack stage 3 dash cancel when you're using Qiuyuan as her sub DPS buffer to do more echo skill damage, S2 will be highly recommended. Qiuyuan. S2 is recommended because the 30% echo skill damage amplification buffs his Resonance Liberation after an intro skill, since the Liberation skills of echo skill damage. It also buffs his current DPS teammates like Galbrena, Folova, and upcoming units like Sigurika, since the Nameless Explorer Echo from the Sound of True Name Sonata effect buffs echo skill damage. So you can't really go wrong with S2. For casual players, S1 gives him full anti-interruption when he is using the 3 separate attacks from his Forte circuit, and it grants 20% crit rate, which honestly should have been crit damage because his weapon already has a crit rate substat and he has crit rate on his skill tree. S3 should be your target if you want to play him as a main DPS, but it comes with some major issues that you need to be aware of. Basically what S3 does is replace his normal skill with an enhanced one after doing the normal rotation. This enhanced skill will consume 60 concerto energy to do big damage and give him 2 gauges of his Forte stacks, so you can use basic attacks right after to recover the last one and use his Forte circuit again, which will do big damage than before because it now receives a 600% increased damage multiplier, which is insane. Everything seems fine so far, but this part of S3 is where the problem lies. After using the enhanced skill, his default outer skill will get replaced by this one, which will deal damage with a 500% multiplier considered as echo skill damage. Why? I thought the whole point of getting sequences was to add more buffs or quality of life changes to existing ones that the character already had from their base kit design, but for Qiuyuan, this doesn't seem to be the case. So if you plan to get S3, keep in mind that you're exchanging superior echo skill damage buffs with high personal damage capabilities. Chisa. S1 is recommended as a good quality of life change to give her anti-interruption when she transitions into chainsaw mode, but her base kit already gives her some level of anti-interruption, as you can see in this footage. The 30% attack from S1 pairs well with S2 for those who prefer to increase her damage dealing capabilities without getting more sequences, and it increases her buffing capabilities as well. Chisa gets to enjoy the 50% damage bonus without any limitations, since it's very easy to inflict unseen snare or the special marker on enemies with her skill, which lasts for quite a long time. Her teammates can also make use of the 50% all-type damage bonus, but is limited to negative status damage dealers like Cortethia, Zani, and Aemeath. S3 is damage focused without any quality of life changes, so that's what you should aim for if you're more interested in DPS Chisa. Lynae. S1 is highly recommended because it gives her more quality of life changes, including crowd control capabilities from the spray paint that she leaves on the ground after using the plunge attack from her forte circuit. The spray paint's duration is now increased to 10 seconds instead of 5 seconds, so now spray paint alone can continuously refresh Tune Rupture or Tune Strain shifting up to 5 times, which increases her synergy with Luuk in multi-wave endgame content like Whimpering Waste, because it becomes much easier to stack more Tune Strain interfered stacks on enemies in a wider AoE and group them at the same time, since Luuk is mostly single target focused. The jump attacks and the plunge attack from her forte circuit also receives 100% anti-interruption, so you can't really go wrong with S1 because it's packed with a lot of quality of life changes and indirect buffs for DPS units that rely on Tune Strain interfered stacks application to do more damage like Luuk. S2 Lynae is for those that want to increase her damage dealing capabilities because of the 25% damage amplification that she receives, and simultaneously offers strong buffing capabilities to any teammate from her outer skill because of the 25% all-type damage amplification. So for non-liberation damage dealers, Lynae can provide up to 40% all-type damage amplification from her outer skill, which makes her the best universal buffer in the entire game. I don't recommend getting S3 unless you're planning to get S6 because it'll be difficult to maintain more than 120 points of Lumi Flow, which will make the skill that she uses to dropkick the enemy in the roller skating mode do less damage. Mornye. S1 is obviously the best sequence that I recommend everyone to go for. The 40% more damage buff from her forte circuit is actually very powerful, so it was deliberately made to last for just 8 seconds, which is a middle finger to every DPS in the game, because 12 to 13 seconds is the average field time requirement for all DPS units in the game to finish doing damage, so get S1 to increase the 8 seconds duration to 20 seconds. S1 also significantly increases the team's overall damage output because it gets rid of the tune break condition that is required to activate the buff from her forte circuit. So now, sub-DPS and hybrids can also make use of the buff right after an intro from Mornye. Unlike S0, where you have to build off tune level with the sub-DPS and tune break with the DPS unit to receive the buff. S2 looks tempting, but don't bother because it's not really worth it. The crit damage should have been crit rate to make it more beneficial to all units in the game. Take Luuk for example. When he's properly built, you should be able to get at least 70% total crit rate with a crit damage focused echo. So getting access to crit rate buffs is much better compared to running a crit rate focus with a crit rate weapon when he's paired with S2 Mornye, resulting in a much lower final crit damage, which also leads to low damage output. To be honest, I think S2 was made to shield units that already gets crit rate from their echo sets like Aemeath and Sigurika, so just focus on S1 and you should be fine. Aemeath. S1 is her best early sequence because it fixes a major issue in her base kit design. The damage from her forte circuit is heavily reliant on Rupture's Trail and Fusion Trail, which is impossible to maintain on enemies in multi-wave contents like Whimpering Waste because they take it along with them when they die. The third part of S1 fixes that, which records the highest stacks of Fusion Trail or Rupture's Trail on a defeated enemy and reapply them to the next wave of enemies. It's actually much similar to Luuk's passive that transfers the Tune Strain interfered stacks from one wave to another. S2 Aemeath is not really needed at the moment because Aemeath is one of the strongest DPS that we have in the game so far, even at S0, but it's recommended for the sake of longevity in terms of doing more damage when Tune Rupture loses its meta relevance. The 400% increased Fusion Burst explosion damage multiplier from S2 makes her more stronger in future Fusion Burst teams when endgame content stop providing buffs related to Tune Rupture damage. And keep in mind that Tune Rupture damage is not part of the core of Tune mechanic, because only a few characters like Lynae, Aemeath, and Mornye can actually trigger them. But Fusion Burst is a core combat mechanic in the game that will continue to receive buffs in endgame content for the foreseeable future. S3 is very tempting, especially if you don't have any of your best in slot teammates, including Lynae and Mornye, because it gets rid of the condition that you need to satisfy before she can get the liberation damage amplification for her final ultimate and the crit damage from this inherent skill. But I would rather advise you to get all the teammates in her best in slot team, because Lynae is the best unit in the game that can assist you with Tune Rupture and Tune Strain shifting application in case any future DPS depends on them to do damage, and Mornye is one of the best universal buffers that we have in the game so far that can make your team building much easier in endgame content, especially when trying to complete Double Pwn's Matrix Pilot. Luuk. S1 buffs his mid-air basic attacks and makes him able to tank 2 instances of damage instead of 1 from his base kit design while he is in mid-air. But these buffs and quality of life changes from S1 are not that great for the following reasons. The 150% mid-air basic attack damage bonus is not that great because it does not contribute to a high portion of his damage over a short period of time like his enhanced skills, plunge attack from his Forte circuit, and his liberation. So it's better to dash cancel his third mid-air attack to speed up his rotations and increase his overall DPS, since he's among one of the few DPS units like Augusta that spends a long period of time on the field when doing damage compared to the majority of DPS units in the game. Do keep in mind that the plunge attack from his Forte circuit is considered as a mid-air attack, which will benefit from the 150% damage bonus from S1. But I wouldn't recommend you to stop at S1 if you're interested in an early sequence that can significantly increase his damage output. You'll be fine without the extra stack of Dawnlit Keep that allows him to tank 1 more damage in mid-air, because you can always dodge to recover from knockbacks while he's doing damage. S2 should be your main target because it increases the liberation damage multiplier by 135% instead of 75% from his base kit design, which is much appreciated, but keep in mind that the damage amplification buff from the second part of S2 is still incomplete without his best in slot sub DPS, because you'll be missing 10% damage amplification when running him with Lynae. So it's not worth getting S2 if you don't have Lynae to provide Tune Break boost. S3 is actually really good, not just because of the huge damage multipliers, but because of this part right here that increases the maximum number of Tune Strain interfere stacks that he can record when an enemy dies, up to 4 stacks, and reapply them on a new wave of enemies in multi-wave content. But you'll be fine without it if you don't want to spend too much money in the game. So focus on S2 if you have Lynae or plan to get her on a rerun. That'll be all for part 2 of the best early sequences for all limited units in Wuthering Waves. I'll leave part 1 in the description if you're interested. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to help support the channel, because it's free and you can always change your mind. Our Discord link will be in the pinned comment if you're having any issues with the game or you just want a place to chill or hang out. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.